Hello everyone, my name is Boris, and a new reroll comp has made it off the stove and hit the ladder. The idea is to play around Orianna as your main carry, and either Loris or Sejuani as your primary tank. For level 6 board, we're looking to play around this kind of board, and as we hit Seraphine, we can look to replace the Caitlyn. Once we hit Lysandra, we're going to replace Anivia, and then we tag in a Braum to complete a Freljord package. Whilst on level 8, if we hit the Zir, we can slot in that. Or we can play around the generic tank Taric, and if we have a Freljord emblem, we can play around a Volibear as well. Generally in this comp, we do not wish to go for 6 Piltover, as we will not be having items for T-Hex. For the itemization, we're looking to play around double Nashor's JG build, which due to the recent Nashor buffs is very strong and performs the best. However, if you have the Seraphim Staff augment, then you could play with double Archangels and a Gunblade, or even a triple Archangels. Otherwise, we're looking at augments that enable us to reroll, so something like a Prismatic Ticket or on a roll. However, if we get offered too much value, we can also play around with Nico and Bard to give us the 2 rerolls per turn and then look to drop them later. For Piltover mods, we're primarily looking for Continuum Cogs at 2 Piltover, and the acceleration gate at 4 Piltover. If you do not get offered those, we can take either Blast Shields or Electrical Overload at 2 Piltover, and Magnetic Coil or Gigantification Ray at 4 Piltover. So without further ado, let's jump in a game with a pro. We are going to be jumping in game here with Darth Nub, who along with Boss House Kills have been one of the first people to try this comp out in High NA Challenger. We are playing in the LeBlanc encounter, therefore we have a possibility of hitting perhaps some of the more broken combos from the earlier augments, particularly on stage 2. Starting out with the Jhin here, and Ionia's Path Enlightened, therefore you would generally be wishing to play around the Ionia, as the resource generating Ionias definitely give you the extra bit of econ, particularly now with level 9 also being more expensive. This is definitely one of the ways how you could enter it. We do get a double Sejuani drop from the Orb, therefore perhaps this is the way we can enter this comp. We do get a Caitlyn as well. Now, I'm not particularly sure if holding onto the double Sejuani is usually the best play since it's so expensive. However, if you are heavily leaning into this comp, it's definitely, I would see, to be the way. Now, for our augments, generally Aura Forming is a little bit underperforming right now, and we are not particularly leaning into the comp right now either. Pilfer is something that we could consider as a econ option, however, we would generally want to do so if we had an upgraded unit already, otherwise we might not able to proc it. Going to roll. And Portable Forge, there perhaps are some niche artifacts that could work on Orianna, however the data sample is quite low yet at the moment, and therefore we're going to rather pick up a Spirit Visage, giving us some nice tempo and generally, in my opinion, a very strong tank augment in the game right away. Going to slam the items here on the Vi to be able to unlock the Orianna, as with the recent unlock change, you only need to be slamming one item and a component on Orianna to unlock Orianna, no longer needing to find the 3 Piltover units, which is very, very nice change. So we're able to pick up Orianna right here, and our components allow us to slam immediately a Nashor's as well. Going to transition the Spirit Visage onto the Sejuani. I would imagine we slam the Nashor's. And our Piltover mod is also Continuum Cogs, the best Piltover mod that we can get offered. I assume we're not making the slam in the hopes that we might perhaps want to consider loose streaking. And the second augment, Cold Shot, not looking at it. Fire Axiom is also not great. Catered Craftering, we already slammed that item, therefore we're just going to be going with a very strong augment and a slightly magical roll. We get a spat and a component, and that nicely transitions right into a Freljord emblem that we can slam and already perhaps play around 3 Freljord. Yes, we're gonna do so. I I'm still not sure exactly why we're holding on to not slamming the Nashers. We are winning these fights regardless, so in theory we do not need to slam. However, perhaps he's wanting to ensure that we are going to get a JG. And before we saw that the augment was a 2-3, we could have held on to it in the chance that we get something like the Seraphim Staff augment. We do manage to pick up a Sejuani 2 from the carousel. Now that is going to give us quite a lot of tempo. Also find the Loris. So now we're taking in 4 Piltover and checked. I perhaps missed which mod he picked, but in general we wish to go for an acceleration gate. Now there is another player who seems to be playing into the comp with double Archangels in the Shogun Slam without the Seraphim augment. Now that, given that they have some Sionas, that could be that they also transition into the Sona board. But we did opt to now slam the Nashers, and we're just gonna level here to secure that we end up on a 4 streak, as if we check our matchups, well, we do queue in the sacking player. However, I assume that he noted that perhaps he needs a little bit more damage on the board in the form of the extra unit. Now let's take a look what other boards are leading into. This would be some form of most likely transitioning into a Seraphine, playing around the LeBlanc and early Scion. We have an Echo reroll player. We have a, seems to be probably a Void player. The player we queued into, who we hope they are going to transition away. An ASOL player. Interesting Bilge Demacia board. And okay, our next augment is on the right now. Now here we get offered combat options, and we did get the double draw drop. Cremmy River could be something great to get already spam casting, and yeah, we're gonna go with that. Also, we had an open gloves, it seems, that so we're going to transition that into a JG. Just going to slam an Archangels here as well. It's going to suffice to give us a 3-item carry right away for the stage 3. We definitely want to streak with this reroll comp, and our front line is quite solid in form of a Freljord and the Sejuani 2 already. Therefore, we are lacking a little bit of damage on the board and going to go with that. Also aggressively level to level 6 to secure that we do continue our win streak. Even though we do not have an econ augment to enable us to reroll right away, we have naturaled quite a bit. We just wish we would have Ori 2, and generally having the tempo with the reroll comps in the current meta is a lot more important than being every bit rich. Particularly as you know that there's going to probably be an ASOL player coming and just raining the stars down on you. Going up against the Echo board is going to be interesting to see how we fare, and already with an Orianna 1, the Echo is not able to get through our front line with the Spirited Visage from Sejuani, and we're able to pick up a win here. And yeah, we did get the acceleration gate for our 4th Piltover mod. Could consider slight rolling here as well. We're scouting the matchups. The longshot player is looking a little scary, and also the Cernivia could go rampant, as the Scion does have a declaw. However, the Sejuani is just so strong at the moment at this stage, and with the Visage, which in my opinion is one of the better tank items you can generally have in the game right now. So we're able to nicely string our streak together. Going into the carousel. As we are last pick, we're just going to opt to go for a tank component, as we have the damage components right away sorted. No need to at the moment fully chase the Abyss. We're going to do want to get a full tank sorted out. Going to roll here until we hit an Orianna 2. Able to pick up that, and just going to hold for now to econ up, as we do not have econ, right? Any kind of reroll augment. And we are on tempo. The board is not going to spike more. The Caitlyn 2 is probably not going to be a considerable spike. However, unfortunately our Anya here gets sniped by the Lux. Therefore it looks like we're going to be dropping our streak to what appears to be, yes, it's an ASOL player. Roll a little bit here. Unfortunately, do not find anything. Sometimes you do manage to find a single copy of Lysandra or a Seraphine. And obviously Seraphine is going to be better than Caitlyn 2, and Lysandra 1 is already going to be better again, Anivia 2. Now it does appear that this player is playing in some form of the board that we are wanting to play, therefore, but they have pushed tempo, so I assume they're not particularly looking to reroll. Going to be interesting to see what else they find. We do pick up a Seraphine here, and we are able to pick up another copy of Orianna. Is holding on to the Xin Zhao as a potential that's, well, we're not guaranteed to find a Braum, right, on 7, so this is something that we can tag in to just give us an extra Warden. Same could be done with something like a Nautilus. Continue the slight roll here. Now, due to our early stage tempo, we have managed to secure the HP lead that now, okay, we're going into stage 4, we're not under the pressure to hit immediately. We can look to slight roll a little bit, and then if we get close, we can send it to keep up with the tempo. Going with the Kaisa on Rift Herald Wand. We have slammed the Bramble West. Now our front line suffices for the Kaisa to not be able to burst it down. So we had the earlier augments, therefore we do not have an augment selection right away. Still very aggressively scouting, however he seems to have his positioning being fully stuck in this corner. Assumes it to be the better one. Perhaps this offers a possibility for the Orianna to be able to get the ball down, or we do manage to beat an Echo 3 board. That's definitely showing the potential of the comp now, given they are 2 Econ augments and Jeweled Lotus, which is a strong combat augment. However, the Echo seems to struggle with this tanky frontline, which is quite interesting to see. The strength in this comp is already showing through here. Still seems to be sitting rather than preferring to send it. Are we perhaps considering going to complete our units on level 7? As I've seen some versions where they opt to not 3-star a tank at all, and then you just play around a Braum 2, which is also very strong. As if you're able to get Orianna 3 early, then it's not worth generally sitting on level 7. You can look to either complete the 3-star tank on level 8 or just play around Braum 2 indefinitely. Now, it's also worth mentioning that the comp is still currently being experimented with, therefore they might be trying out some new stuff. Now we consider to roll down, find the Seraphine pair, and are able to hit our Ori 3. Still far ways off from the Sejuani, therefore I assume we might consider pushing to level 8. I also assume that the scouting was done to primarily see if the other player who was playing around the Orianna and Sona was holding any extra copies. Yeah, we're going to push level 7 here and just tag in the Xin Zhao. Now, which was the player that was playing around? We see a couple of ASOL players. Yeah, so this was the player, I believe, who had been... No, that was a different player. This is the player. Right, so we're going up against them, and they have transitioned into a Demacia board, and I assume he was looking to see if this player was holding any extra copies of Orianna, and if it's worth for us to roll. Sometimes, if you see that these players are clearly going to pivot, they might just sell the copies and you're able to hold on to it. Otherwise, sometimes they might spite you and opt to still hold them, and then we're sad. Probably going to look to complete our third item. Declaw would be something neat here. Pick up perhaps another Archangels. Yep. Just going to leave the glove open, that if there's an open component on the carousel later on, we can just go for something like a TG. Now it appears that we're going to be looking to push levels here, as mentioned before. And then we can just replace that Zenzao with a Brom and looking to see what other 4-cost we can slot in as our flex slot. We already have picked up the Taric, so that's going to be nicely. Okay, we do up to roll to see if we can perhaps find a Sejuani tree. As I'm not sure if... Yeah, there's one person already with Brom 2. Therefore, I assume he's considering that, okay, we're going to... Rather than trying to go for level 8 on this not that much gold and look for a 2-star Brom, our better chance is to keep rolling here, upgrade our board slowly, and then chase the 3-star tank in either form of Loris or a Sejuani. Also, we have nicely managed to 2-star our 4-costs of the Seraphine and Lissandra. It's a little surprising that we managed to pick a Seraphine, which is as very contested in the current meta as almost ASL players also run it. But going up against Dale and Zera too, it's a very close fight here, and unfortunately we're not able to. If we had perhaps another item, we would have been able to take it out, but sadly does not appear so. Picking up a JG from a carousel, I would assume we would have preferred a Marilla to complete our utility. However, JG is going to suffice, going to give us another nice secondary carry in form of the Seraphine. Able to pick up Sejuani 3 here. Had to roll a little deeper than we perhaps would have liked. However, I assume we can give up on this Loris 3 now and just make an extra econ and make our way to level 8. Against another ASL player. Unfortunately, since we are so clumped, once the ASL gets casting on our Freljord power stack, we do take quite a bit of damage. But through the HP that we have preserved from the early game, we are able to take these kind of losses as expected. This is why these reroll combos very, very much wish to have strong stage 3 and strong early stage 4. Because once we get to the stage 5, these higher capping comps are always going to be a significant threat to us. Playing against that Seraphine Lissandra board, and we now that in the form of a 3-star tank, they do not pose threat. They are all also stuck on Seraphine 1. So we have gotten a little lucky by hitting the Seraphine. Yeah, so we're gonna give up on Loris, just level up here. And we should be, I believe, we should have secured our top 4 quite nicely. We have not one ASL player, the Seraphine, Lissandra player, we have the Echo player and another ASL player. Now, we had, through Sejuani 3, we have enough HP to be able to unlock Brom. That's why we pushed level 8 before. Creep round to be able to pick up this Brom, this Volibear. However, we do not exactly have the items for it. Going up against Echo Regal, who's on our weaker side, possibly could wrap. No, he's going to get stuck on the Sejuani, and then the Orianna damage, together with Lissandra Bream, is able to just burst Echo down. So many threats for Echo in the current meta, with ASL just chickering it down, and then this seems to be another comp as Orianna does have quite strong primary target damage, therefore she can also just gang up on your melee carries. Now, this is a very capped ASL board with the Zera too. They're probably going to get a lot of combat charms, so let's see how the fights fare out. However, I believe that, yeah, the ASL just hits and chips your front line, back line down, and then Zera rains down terror on it. I would assume that we're going to lose it, but we have managed to secure top 2 here. Then this was the Echo player who went 3rd. Now, just quickly checking their stacks. Yeah, they are at 600 stacks. They're fully stacked up. They have the charms. I do not believe that we're going to be able to win it. Trying out some niche positioning, maybe perhaps get out on the backline, but just ASL rains us down right away, and then Zera cleans up our backline. So yeah, even though there's one more round left, it's clear to see that ASL has unfortunately outscaled us. But again, through the early HP preservation that we did, recognizing the timings when you have to roll, scouting around the lobby diligently, seeing if and when the extra copies of our units are being held, we have managed to secure a 2nd place And with reroll comps, this is going to be generally very, very good placement. Therefore, just for the show, the ASOL blows us up one last time. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one.